back again at Sawtooth. Scott went to go get me a bagel and coffee. We start our model at 10, and of course nobody's here. Scott and I are just early people. We are just early. So, oh, someone's coming. Who's here? Who's here? It's Sharon and Rose. You guys made it. I'm so glad that you made it.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you. We're happy to be here. Yes, we are. And I totally.
So the model is late, so I posed in my clothes. So Scott did this of me. Oh my gosh. All right. Oh, no, I like that. You're just, no, oh my God. Oh, I like that, especially that one. I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
That one's cute. I know, it's hard when people are wearing clothes. Oh, I like that one. Oh, that's neat. So my face was like totally in shadow?
Well, it was pretty, yes.
Oh, wow, I love that. I love it when faces are in shadow. Oh, oh, cute. Oh, I like that one a lot.
Oh, good.
Oh.
That was my first one.
That is so fun. Oh, look at me. Look at it. Look, I got the little mitten. I love it. No, it's perfect. That is perfect. Oh, cool. Oh, that is so nice. Good, Mary Ruth.
This one's my favorite.
Oh, let me see. Oh,
Of the ink one.
I love it. I love these.
I like that one.
Yay! Thank you for showing me, you guys. Oh, there's Madeline. Yay!
I went right by Scott though, I think I
So these are some of the ones I've been working on. I don't like that. Oh. We have a new member that we're so excited to meet. She is new from Lynchburg. So let's go see what Scott is doing. Oh, Scott, I like the montage all around your lino cut.
Yeah, I figured I'd use this paper. That was those test ones,
I
remember?
really like that one.
Yeah, this one, I was just telling her how, she was sitting very straight up.
Yeah.
And I keep reminding myself, I don't have to paint it the way it is. I liked her bent over more, try to make it more interesting.
And that pose is really beautiful.
That was a beautiful pose.
So
She's
you're
such a
just
great
using
model.
like these new pastels
Yeah.
and General's chalks, and then
Yeah.
like the General's white chalks.
Right, yeah. Yeah, just the big shapes.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, they're fun.
You're always so fast. You're able to get like everything, like the face and the feet. I never get to the face or the feet.
I love the way we do that.
I told her she was going to be on my YouTube. we just bamboozled her into all of our art groups. And there's Mary Ruth. Hi. Do you like any of your drawings? No. Not yet. I had a few that didn't work out. I don't like how this shoulder and stuff, but and some of them are on the back of this, but this is what we did. I really want to work on dark paper and see what the pastel looks like. Next week will be even better. So Scott, are these the only drawings you did?
I did these. I did a couple others of these.
Because I was like, we had more poses than this.
Well, no, I did all of the poses.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't see these.
And
I love this one, Madeline, where you had your fists.
I love
it. It kind of
Great
looked
pose.
like a superhero almost.
There's Susan Lyon.
Oh my God, me! How funny.
Yeah, very quick poses.
Yeah, Madeline, she's a great model. We've had her pose. We met her, gosh, forever. She's a pro.
that is fun.
Yeah.
When I'm sitting
Alright.
So you're setting that to 55 Kelvin?
That's what this was on. The lights. I had it set at 52
Oh.
before because I was shooting my camera. It was set at 52 Kelvin. So 55 will make it bluer. So
Yeah, we're just trying to do tests and figure out the perfect exposure for taking, because I was having issues taking photos of my pastels, and our old Nikon right there, which is a good camera, but and I'm probably just not an expert photographer, but I just felt that my pastels were just a little bit fuzzy. Like I was never able to get them super crisp. And so Scott is going to spend a little bit of time and take pictures of all my little pastel studies, just so that I can get the best photos possible. So wait, I don't understand. I thought you were going to have that facing the drawing.
You said you liked it better with the fluorescence rather than with that.
Oh, so
So I'm setting it back on your palette.
you didn't have those both on at the same time? You only
No.
had the fluorescence? So you turned those off on the test that we liked?
Did I forget to turn those off? No, yeah, we took the fluorescence off. First I shot it with the fluorescence and this off.
Oh, okay.
And then I took the fluorescence out and I turned that on.
So you never took photos with both those lights on?
No, I don't think so. Do you think I forgot?
I think you only did 2 tests. You didn't do 3 tests.
Yeah, I just shot only with that, and I'm only with these, and then only with these.
But I assumed you tried doing a test when you had both of them on too.
No, I don't think so. You know,
What's the reasoning for not doing that?
well, because then you're mixing them together. I wanted to see what each light did
Okay.
as far as its temperature. These will probably get good results if you switch them to less cool, because you said those look too blue on your, or too blue or not blue enough?
Too blue.
Too blue. So we could turn this down, and so that was what I would
Okay, so we're just saying that we're trying to find the best lighting, and when Scott only used the
fluorescence.
the LEDs.
They're
the
not
mic-
LEDs, they're fluorescents.
No, when you took photos of
Oh,
only the LEDs,
yeah.
my drawing came out too blue.
Right.
And when you took photos of only the fluorescents, which these are old fluorescents,
Yeah. You liked it.
the colors looked
Right.
more normal.
Now I could turn the colors on the LEDs. I can change the colors light to different colors, so we could probably get those to come out good on here. But since you would have to adjust these to photograph because you use
Okay.
this on your palette, I
Right.
figured if you're happy with the LEDs, with the fluorescence, we'll just stick with that.
Okay, so now the whole idea is that you just are going to try and get as crisp a shot as possible.
Yeah.
Because that was a lot of my issue. And you're saying that you think that your new Canon is just going to take better photos in general.
It takes better photos in general because it's higher resolution and because it has a more modern, newer full sensor than the older Nikon that we had, so it should shoot better ones as well.
Okay, so
The real key, and you tried this though in the Nikon and it still didn't work, the real key is to have a high f-stop. So I'm shooting at f16. This way the focal distance isn't just like this, it's like this.
I mean, that's a little over my head,
So
but
that
whatever.
way, if you're slightly off on the focus, it's still within that range.
Because I'm doing automatic focus. I'm not doing it manually.
Right.
So
I'm
it
using automatic
should.
as well. Yeah.
That's
But if you have a very narrow focus plane like this, okay, if the image is very slightly not straight or anything, that means that the top or the sides can go out of focus because it's going out of, it's bending out of the plane.
I guess I just assumed since my pastels were so small, they
Smaller
wouldn't.
is harder.
It is?
Smaller is harder on focus. Yeah. It's because if you're close like that, your focus plane is very narrow. And,
Okay, I don't think I'm ever going to understand that.
It's like if you're shooting, if you think of like people who shoot micro pictures of flowers or bees on there, focus plane is so narrow because you're zoomed in that the background will often be way out of focus. If you're slightly out of focus.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me, I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's why I'm shooting at a high f-stop. So when it does automatically focus, I know everything will be in there. But also this has a better sensor, so that can also help make it do
Okay,
that.
good. I'm glad. So we're just going to spend about maybe a half hour, how long, and just so that Scott takes much better photos of these. Because I've done them, but I mean for just regular, for final photos. So I had told Scott that I thought the photos were coming out a tiny bit light, but you put the camera on a timer, right? So that there's no jiggling.
Within the camera here, you can see on the back here. Let me go out of this here.
No, but
So within the camera here, I hit my quick thing here. Oh, I turn my thing on, And now you see it has all these quick settings. You can do this in the menu too. I'm taking it down here to the timer, self-timer, and then I'm clicking that, and I can set it to 2 seconds or just take a shot when I press it, or I can put it on timer and make it a longer
But you put it on a
timer.
timer so that like you don't jiggle it at all.
Because I'm doing longer exposures, this will be like a 1.5-second exposure. It'll go bloop, and it'll stay open. So if I'm holding it, or even when I press the button and move it, this can still be jiggling a little bit. That'll make it out of focus.
Right.
So this way, when I press it, and I take a picture here, I'll put it up on the screen here so you can see. So put it up here. So now when I press it down halfway, it's focusing, and then I'll press it and I'll let go. Then it takes the picture.
It's just something for people to think about.
That 2 seconds is long enough for any slight jiggle from my finger pressing because it'll take the picture immediately when you press it, and just pressing it and letting go will jiggle it. So for a long exposure,
So use a tripod.
It would make a difference. Even you have to be even careful if I move around in this mat, when I take the picture, it'll jiggle the camera slightly. So that on a close-up picture like this, it can throw it out of focus.
And so in your, what kind of lens is this?
This is a 85mm prime lens. So 85mm is so that when I shoot it, I'm not too close to where it'll slightly bend the edges of it. Prime just means that it doesn't zoom in or out. So when you have a zoom lens that you can zoom in or out, you have layers of glass inside there that allows it to zoom. Each layer now slightly degrades the sharpness of the image. So since you're wanting a really sharp picture, I'm using the prime lens so that I have less glass in there to slightly soften it. Just like looking through a window. Each layer of glass, if you put a bunch of glasses in there, it'll start to get a little out of focus what you see outside.
All right, good.
So let's review that picture here. And then I zoom in on it to just make sure it's...
Yeah, you zoom in on something like an eye, right? Or
So yeah, I zoom in, and then I zoom in way inside there to just see look at how sharp that is there. Go as close as we can here, and you can really see every little bit of pastel stroke you've got on there. It's just completely crisp.
That's what I want, because that's why I like pastel. I want to see strokes, and so in my photographs, if they come out the teeniest bit fuzzy, it just looks like it's been over softened.
And the other thing that you need to make sure of is when you get your cameras, oftentimes they will come with an automatic, like, fixing colors and stuff. It'll boost the color, it'll change things with
like
sharpness and everything.
Or something?
Default. So like in this here, on mine, on the back here, I have these different settings. Where is it on this one? I might have to go into the menu to see that on here. Looks like I have to go into the menu on that, but there are settings in there. Let me see here. Faithful. Okay, this is the one here.
Oh, faithful. Actually, the word faithful shows
It means it's just staying faithful to
could you
what's
go back
happening
to
in the
faithful?
lens. Okay.
Because it actually had that word, faithful. There we go.
F. So you
That's
see
weird.
faithful down there. You'll see it on the actual thing when I click it here.
Seen that
So you
before.
see all these settings in here. So it has different settings for how much it's going to change your contrast. Do an automatic.
And so the old
thing.
Nikon didn't have
Contrast. No, the old Nikon has that too. Whenever I get the camera.
that. I didn't know that.
The other camera, just whenever I get them, the very first thing I do is I go into the camera. Even on our phones, you can do that. And I change it to, rather than putting in like a filtering where it's trying to adjust your contrast, it'll do like an auto level.
Why haven't you ever told me that before?
I always turn that to just normal. Sometimes the pictures won't look as bright or brilliant when you just take them out there, so you'd have to put them in Photoshop and adjust them.
Scott, I'm just going to say I've never heard that before.
But I do that because when we take pictures of our paintings, we don't want it to be doing an auto level.
Yeah, no, I know.
Because it'll mess things up, the colors, the values.
All right.
So that's something on this camera that I did as well, because it didn't come like that. It came with the standard thing, not on faithful, so I changed it to that, so it's not doing any image adjustment.
Fascinating, 'cause I've never... It's too much for my brain.
Okay, so that
I can't
picture
deal
came
with all of it. I've never heard faithful before.
Well, they call it different things. Like in the Nikon, it called it just, I think it's like normal, or maybe it's like, they have different words for it.
We just had a huge lunch and my stomach is full, and I honestly think that I'm not getting any oxygen to my brain.
Now before
All I want to do is nap.
Before I shoot all 30 of your pictures, we're going to test this in the
Okay.
computer, and we're going to look at it again on the
Okay.
screen and see if it looks good. Because
Yeah.
it would be annoying to.
No, that's the
See
whole
that
point, is
later.
to like take the time
Yeah.
to like actually get good photos.
Where does this go in your camera?
It goes in the adapter. That little
Where is it?
adapter that's hanging down from the back.
Oh, I see it here.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So we drove down to Charlotte to the Jerald Melberg Gallery. And I guess this is a pretty good gallery. We've never been to it or kind of even known much about it. And somehow I had found out about Brian Rutenberg. I don't know if it was Pinterest or Instagram. You know how like you just don't really, we're not very familiar with Charlotte either. So we kind of came down and we're gonna go to an art supply store after. But I just became familiar with Brian Rutenberg. And I really like his work. So it was good timing that like he was having a one-man show here, and I guess he has one here every year. So we just got here and it's very, very crowded. I met some lovely artists. I introduced myself to Brian, and he's gonna give a talk. So I'm gonna try and film a tiny bit of it. Yeah, I mean, you can tell that his initial impulse is landscape and then abstraction of the landscape. But we really wanted to come and kind of take a closer look, because you know how when you see things online, it's so different, and I can tell that I'm wondering, well, I don't know if he uses oil sticks, but you can see when you look at the side of his painting that there are definitely like these smaller shapes are very, very three-dimensional. I know, I love these kind of acidy fluorescent colors. I'm so attracted to them. But you can see this blue right here. This blue right here is very, very thick. And then his canvas is like toned this sort of brown ochre. And so that was probably the initial. And you could also tell that his canvas is actually has a big texture. You know, so it's very, almost probably a very rough canvas. Like this green stroke right here, like very, very thick, and obviously there's multiple layers of paint. You can even look at the edge at the bottom, because you can tell this was on the easel. You know, the paint kind of settling there, but these pinks and blues, wow. Yep, I saved myself a seat, so I better go grab it before someone takes it. So I'm sitting down waiting for the talk. He has a YouTube channel, and who knows, maybe this will be part of his podcast, but I just want you to see how close I'm sitting next to this painting. I mean, literally, and I want you to see how thick it is. So, I mean, it is very obvious that there are about, 10, 15 layers of paint, and how completely solid these strokes. It's almost like weaving fabric. So, it is kind of interesting, but you do have to wait for this stuff to dry a pretty long time, to be able to varnish it. They do not have enough seats for this talk. So. I hope I don't look too stupid when they're talking if they see me filming. But, I'm going to embarrass myself for you guys.
Story about Brian Rutenberg. When he was younger, well, have to be much younger, he was a shy kid, and he didn't do well with girls. He was going to go out on a date with this young lady, and he didn't quite know how to conduct himself, so he asked one of his friends to help him out, and his friend said, well, have a nice time. When the evening is over, give her a little kiss on the forehead and tell her that you had a nice time. And so Brian did this, gave her a little kiss and said, I really had a nice time. And she looked at him with dreamy eyes and said, a little lower, please. and Brian said, I had a wonderful time. This is my good friend here. You know, I was thinking about what I was going to say about Brian that hasn't already been said a myriad times by many people. He is a consummate artist. He has become truly a national entity, and he really knows what he's doing. These paintings are so beautiful, and I've always said that there's not one of them that I couldn't walk into. I still feel that about these paintings. One of the best ones is in his house, and if I'm ever staying there without him around, might disappear. So I'm really, this crowd says all I need to say about Brian. So rather than him giving a little lecture, we decided this morning that I'm going to ask him a few questions, and then hopefully all of you will ask him a lot of questions. So I'm going to sit, because I need to anyway. So Brian, my first question to you is, what is the square root of 17?
Lower, please.
Sorry, isn't it? Whoa. Can I get that down there? Okay, where do we begin? What is Banner of the Coast?
First of all, thank you all for taking some time out to come out today, and thank you and Mary for everything you've done for me. My greatest blessing in life was being born and raised in South Carolina. And as a kid, Myrtle Beach, where I was born and raised, offered very little in the fine arts. So I had to sort of fend for myself. I didn't know that anyone could be an artist. I didn't know this was what you could do. And I was a shy kid, as you noted. I was gloriously terrible at sports, and I was sloppy. I was the reason that paper towels are on school supply lists. But what I could do at a very early age was pay attention. And I noticed that something miraculous was happening right in front of my eyes. Myrtle Beach is one place that has two faces. On one hand, it's a resort town with candy-colored blinking lights and all-you-can-eat calabash seafood signs 3 stories tall. And the other half is some of the most haunting landscapes on the East Coast. And all I had to do was pay attention because something was happening in front of me. It was a high-speed collision of 2 landscapes, one natural and one artificial, colliding head-on at 250 miles an hour with such violence that they became a third thing. And that third thing is what I've tried to apprehend in my paintings to this day, to try to capture that thing that explodes out of that collision. So my art education began in the public library, at Chapin Memorial Public Library, where my mom would drop me off a couple days a week and I would pour through the art history section. I was about 13 years old. It was the 700s in the Dewey Decimal System. And what I value now as I look back was that experience gave me the gift of misunderstanding. And what I mean by that is when you're too young or not cognitively developed to interpret what you're reading, you start to make stuff up yourself and you start to fill in the blanks yourself. And you take all these little detours that were never intended. I was a 13-year-old numbnuts reading about, synthetic cubism and analytic cubism and Veronese and, Italian mannerism. I had no idea what I was reading about, but I kept going and I kept looking. And I remember my mom would pick me up and she'd say, "Brian, where's your grammar?" And I would say she's on the back porch with Grandpa. And a few years later, as I became a teenager, I developed an interest in the carnival banners that you would see at the state fairs, the amusement parks, and the rides, as we call them, in Myrtle Beach. And what I loved was that these were big, clear, visual presentations of an event. Concise, saturated color, large forms at the periphery, and then gradually getting smaller as you get in toward the focal point of the image. And whether it was the pie eating contest or the human cannonball or the 10-in-1 show, each banner was a visual description, not of what will happen, but of what could happen. And there's a big difference there. My teacher at the College of Charleston, Michael Tyzak, used to always say, "An eye not told what to see, sees more." So the notion that reality had been questioned, re-examined, and improved through exaggeration and ornamentation. And that's what I saw in these carnival banners. And I remember my ever-supportive parents got me the name and address of a local artist who lived in Conway who painted the banners. And I wrote him a fan letter, as I like to do. I still write fan letters. And I said, I admire what you're doing, and could I please have your autograph? And about 6 weeks later, I got a letter. And, "Dear Brian, thanks for your note. Unfortunately, I don't give out my signature. Sincerely," and it was... So I graduated at 17 years old, and I had no desire to go anywhere else but Charleston. My parents had a love affair with Charleston ever since we were little kids. We'd go down every couple of months. And at one point, my mom commissioned a local portraitist to do a pastel portrait of myself and my two younger brothers. And her name was Alicia Rhett. And she was well known in Charleston for these pastels, but she was also known as India Wilkes, Ashley Wilkes' sister, in a little kind of unknown film called Gone with the Wind. And she had a pretty sizable role. And I remember going down over a couple of successive weekends, and I would sit for her in this beautiful old antebellum house south of Broad, and watch her. And up to that point, my dad was an attorney and sat in a room full of books. I saw what his job was, but I never knew that this could be a job too. And I saw this little woman behind this beautiful wooden easel with this cream paper and battalions of pastels lined up like the markings of a diamondback snake, and little porcelain cups with chamois skins and blenders and all these tools. And I would ask her questions. How do you do this? How do you get the rose of my cheek to look like it goes back to my ear by going from rose to green? How do you get the shine in my freshly shampooed hair? How do you get the blue eye, to look moist? And she would tell me. And then she finished and she said, "Brian, come around here, I'm done." And before thinking, my instinct was to reach out and smudge the eye, the blue eye. And I thought, oh my God, she's gonna hit me with a polo mallet. And she didn't, and she said, "Brian, I think you're gonna be a painter." So, College of Charleston, and I found my people. And in the 4 years I was at the College of Charleston, I never heard the word no once. Every question was answered with the word yes, and that made all the difference to me. So my first art class ever was William Halsey's last.
I'll point out that about 3 years ago, Brian received an honorary doctorate from the College of Charleston and was the commencement speaker. And his two children now are students at the College of Charleston. And to make sure that everybody behaves themselves, we have with us the Dean of the Honors System from the College of Charleston. So, because I can't do it alone. I need some help to keep Brian in line.
So May 11th, 1987, I moved to New York May 12th of that year, and have lived there ever since. And it's had a profound impact on the way that I see the world. And even though these are landscape paintings, they very much refer to the human experience of the landscape. So there's a lot of emphasis on verticals and on standing in front of something, looking at it, which is that vertical orientation, you and the horizon line. So if you notice, a lot of the paintings, the light in the paintings is usually issued from the very top, and then it plunges down into darkness. There's a lot of tall, long verticals, which is a reference to my interest in Gothic architecture, but also Manhattan. The notion that light is at such a premium when you walk around the city, you have to look up to see the sky and see what the weather is and all that. There's an enormous rushing energy that usually occurs at the bottom of these paintings, which refers to street life and the subways and all those things. And also the notion of the seasons passing within one painting. I always like to refer to two seasons in the same picture. If you notice on this one, the cooler tones on the top left transfer over to the warmer tones on the top right. And that's to make you feel as if you're standing in December on the left, peering ahead into April on the right. And that's another reference to New York, in which we see the seasons happening at the tips of these skyscrapers above us. So yes, it's had an enormous impact on the way that I construct and compose.
Well, tell us how texture plays such an important part of your work.
I paint the landscape in the same way that I learned how to see it, by lying on my stomach on the ground with my chin in the dirt as a kid. The foreground so up close that I could literally taste it, and the background really far away, and then nothing in between. When you look at the landscape from the ground, from a bug's eye view, the landscape, the middle ground goes away. And I do that very much in my paintings. You'll notice a lot of emphasis on the foreground, and then a very quick jump to the distant background. And that comes from my interest in the Canadian group of 7 painters from the 1920s and 30s, who would often eliminate the middle ground to give the viewer the feeling of being in the direct proximity to the raw power of nature, with nothing in between. It made me think of when we were in school as kids, we used to go to school by carpool. And there was a woman named Miss Williams who would pick us up, and she was terrifying. And I remember I would get in her car, and she'd light up a cigarette and yell at me to roll up the windows because you're letting the smoke out. And I remember her son asked her once, Mom, was I adopted? And she said, not yet. And then we were studying To Kill a Mockingbird in school. And I remember asking her if she believed in fate. We were talking about the role of fate in life. And I said, do you believe in fate, Miss Williams? And she said, I said, do you believe in free will? And she said, I don't have a choice. Which I thought, I didn't realize how brilliant that was until much later. And where I'm going with this is that in magic, which is a big interest of mine, stage magic, the secret behind magic is making what you have to do appear like it's what you want to do. So in other words, if I have a wand in this hand and I wave it over this hand, I'm telling you to look at this while I make a move with this hand. So the same thing is true in painting. You have to make what looks extemporaneous, you have to make it look like it's natural and extemporaneous, even though it's highly labored. And that's hard to do, to make something look as if it spontaneously just appeared out of nowhere. But in fact, it's very, very time consuming, and a lot of struggle and trial and error. So that's a big part of the way that I use texture. The reason that I use thick oil paint and texture is not because I like the way it looks, but because it creates a spatial orientation. And what I mean is thick paint appears closer and thinner paint appears farther away. So it's really that simple. The content in a lot of this work is really driven by how near or far something appears from your face. And I love to boil it down to just that very simple premise of surface. I like that thick paint is the truth. It's not a depiction of something. It is the actual fact happening right in front of you. So what you see on the surface is what matters. If you see it, it's meant to be there. It's the truth. If one color passes over another, it really does. It's on top of another color. If I throw oil paint at a canvas, it splats. If I add paint thinner, it runs. It all acts like real things act in the world, with gravity and light and shadow. So I like this sort of topographical, physical paint surface. And it reminds me of something that I read years ago, written by the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. And it's very short, and I committed it to memory, I'll try to recite it for you. Those Greeks, they knew how to live. What is required for that is to stop courageously at the surface, to believe in folds, skin, to adore appearances, the whole Olympus of appearance. Those Greeks were superficial out of profundity. And I think what he's saying there is, at least to me, is that in our constant quest to find meaning in everything, we sometimes overlook reverie. I think he's reminding us that pleasure is itself a form of knowledge. Would you rather have a critic describe sweetness to you in a 10-page essay, or would you rather bite into a warm raspberry-filled Krispy Kreme? That will tell you everything you need to know about sweetness. So that notion of direct experience is, I think, refers to the texture.
He doesn't come to Charlotte for his shows. He comes because there's a Krispy Kreme. Brian, you astonish me. You always do. One thing I wanted to ask you is, what's a typical day like for you in the studio?
I love that
Typical
question.
week?
Yeah. I'd like to talk about that because I have a really strict ritual. So I get up at about 8 in the morning, 8:10, something like that. And the first thing I do is swing my legs out of bed, put them on the floor, and sit up on the edge of the bed. And I sit there. And I don't do anything. I just sit. I make no decisions, and I just wait. And then from muscle memory, when it's right, I just get up and then go in and brush my teeth and shave and everything. But try it, because it's really interesting to not make any decision there. Just sit on the bed and just wait. And eventually you'll get up. And you've not made any decision, you just get up out of ritual. And the first thing I do is look in the mirror and I decide which one of the village people I'm going to be for that day. I like to use contemporary references. If I'm going to make stuff that day, I'm the construction worker. If I feel like a leader that day, I'm the Native American chief. If I need order, I will be the police officer. If I'm feeling a little bit sleazy, I'm the leather guy. And if I need to just take care of shit, then I'm the army dude. Then I meet my couple actor friends. There's 4 of us, and we have oatmeal and coffee at our local diner. And then I go to my studio about 9 o'clock, 9:30. And I do the first hour or so of answering emails or sweeping, just menial tasks. And then I just get to work. And I don't think or plan, I just start.
This guy has breakfast with Richard Kind and Matt Damon. So
Just a couple little actors like that.
Okay, we have so many people here. There's got to be a few questions. Who wants to begin? Somebody, come on.
Over here.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Brian. I noticed maybe 3 or 4 paintings here that what to me speaks sun or light. The shape that I've not noticed in paintings before, maybe. And I wanted to know, is that something new? Is it to represent sun or just light? And I don't know if you can even point out the one behind you.
Yes. Yes.
Has a star,
Yes.
sun burst.
Yes. Yeah. The question is about that specifically that image, that motif that appears in this more recent work, and its reference to heat or sun. And it is those things very much so. I'm a student of art history, and I look at all periods, specifically Peruvian feather textiles with some of this information. And I look at the notion of the symbol of the sun, of the rays, of that beautiful pointy, almost like a weapon, like you'd throw it and it would stick into wood, that kind of thing. It also refers to sand spurs, and anybody that's grown up in Myrtle Beach, because we used to get them stuck in our toes. Yeah, those evil little landmines like that. So I like this notion of these this reference to radiance and to heat, and I like to put them up in the corner so that they sort of provoke radiance into the painting. And there's that notion again of light on one side and less light on the other. So a transference of morning to evening or seasons to seasons. And the comedian Steve Martin said, "It's easy to be great, it's hard to be good." Anyone can hit it out of the park now and then, but it's much harder to be consistently good. And that's what I mean by having only a couple of moves that you do, but you perfect them over a long period of time. No one talks about that. How do you get good at something? You just limit it down to one thing or 2 things, and you work on that over and over and over again. I believe that time not the market, determines quality. So I think you have to limit your perspective, limit what it is you're trying to do, and define your job description as narrowly as possible. I always ask myself, what is someone's job? If I'm looking at a Hudson River painting in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, yes, they painted beautiful vistas of the American West, but really they were the first conservation movement of America, the first nature conservation movement. Frank Sinatra was a saloon singer. That was his job. Jerry Lewis was a clown. That was his job. The Rolling Stones sell T-shirts. That's their job. They make, great music, but their money comes from selling T-shirts. And my job is to be a failed magician. So it takes the pressure off. And I was reading the other day when Google was founded, the two founders of Google sat down and they had to have an argument. Are they going to have ads or no ads? And they went back and forth, and the founder who decided on ads won the argument, and they have ads. But it was the other one who lost the argument that said, okay, if we're going to have ads, we're going to make it discreet, tasteful, we're going to let you know it's an ad, and we're going to give you the option to skip it. So in a way, that's what made Google successful, the loser in the argument, not the winner. The winner just had the win, but the loser is the one who had all the ideas. So always better to be never be the smartest person in the room. Yes.
Follow-up question. How would you talk about your two moves?
Oh, my two moves.
Like specific paint.
Yes.
talk.
Yeah. I approached the
Not the
landscape.
moves with that girl.
Yes.
Because you were not very good at that.
No. The two moves I think is to boil the landscape down to a few key visual elements. Very often there'll be two sides that have a lot of sort of aggressive stacked twigs and thickets and things that you have to look through. And then it sort of gradually transcends into something more ethereal and thinner toward the center of the image. And that's a way of creating kind of an artificial representation, not of the landscape, but of the image of landscape. And that's a big difference. I'm not really interested in painting or representing the landscape. I'm interested in representing the image of the landscape. And when you go to the image, then it gets really interesting, because you're shooting the natural world through your personal psyche, through all of your memories and quirks and all your idiosyncrasies, and then you're putting it back out. So my moves are those two things, is the way to compose a picture. Almost every one of them has the same thing, and I've never changed, and I see no reason to change. I just want to get more direct. My teacher used to say, what's the least amount of information you can have and still have a painting? Yes?
I just wanted to say thank you. I only found out about you about 3 years ago, and you were at the Mint, and you gave a talk there, and I was there, and I've followed you ever since. And I follow other artists, but I find that I had sent you 3 questions, and you are on the spot answering my questions very promptly, and so many others don't do that. And I want to thank you for that. And I also want to thank you for the outstanding YouTube videos that you do in your studio. There's been a lot of thought and effort into those, and I really enjoyed them.
Thank you. I had good teachers, so I'm just doing what I was taught. Thank you. Yes?
Could you talk about the musicality of your paintings? Like if one of your paintings were a song, how would you describe it?
Specifically from a Rembrandt portrait at the Met, the 1661, the old one, which I go back to and have recently in the past week. That's why I'm mentioning it. Not his features, but the background. He was a master at the backgrounds, which he would create, I think, with magenta and brown and lead white, and he had these beautiful grays that he would come up with, and they were spatial and vaporous. So I wanted to sort of play with that idea of that gray brown, that velvet. Yeah, it's from Rembrandt.
That almost matches the carpet.
Yeah, I did, and that too. Jerald, he was the intersection of psychology and identity put into visual form. It's Facebook. We see him age from a rosy-cheeked twink to a cocky middle-aged man to the carcass of an old man, right before our eyes. And I was looking at it, and I remember thinking, in my 20s and 30s, I cared all the time about what people thought of me. And then in my 40s, I decided, I don't care what people think about me. And now I'm in my 50s, and I realized No one ever thought about me. So that's the turning point.
Someone else?
What's one career path changing that you get from the SBA?
What was the path changing of SVA? So I went to graduate school at School of Visual Arts in New York City, 1987 to 1989. And the reason I went to grad school was to have a soft landing into New York and to be able to be near the Metropolitan Museum of Art and to have a small group of like-minded individuals to sort of, bounce ideas off of. So there were about 28 of us in that class. And there were one or two seminal figures, Gregory Amanoff being one of them, who's still active today, a great painter. And we quickly became really good friends, and he hired me as his studio assistant. I was flat broke, I was doing like 3 jobs at once, and he said, I'll pay you $15 an hour, come stretch these canvases. I babysat his daughter, I picked up his dry cleaning, and I learned the unglamorous underbelly of what we do. It's not pretty. It's sloppy, dirty work, and I don't even call it work because, the plumbing has to go on, doctors have to go on and stuff. Show business and entertainment, it doesn't. It's vital, but it's not. I don't want to say work because what I do is it is hard work, but it's not hard work like a soldier or a police officer. So I wanted to clarify that part. But it was those figures, especially Gregory, who sort of let me see what a working artist's life really looks like and taught me to be generous and grateful. And I had him as a role model. And Michael Tyzak at the College of Charleston was my other face on the Mount Rushmore. He's no longer with us. He was a British painter, and he's like another father to me. And I'll tell you a quick little anecdote about Michael. When it came time to move to New York, I was scared and nervous and excited. And he took me to lunch at Jack's on George Street, which is no longer there. And I ordered grits and scrambled eggs, and Michael ordered toast and tea. And we talked and reminisced about our time together at CFC. And I said, Michael, I'm really scared. I don't know what I'm doing and what to expect, and how do you do this? And I said, you've done this for like 60 years. How does one be an artist? What does it take? And he paused for a minute, and he put his cup down in its sloppy little saucer, and he said, this is really good toast. And I was never the same after that. It's don't sweat the small stuff. It's everything you need is right in front of you. So that's what I learned from him. Yes, sir.
At what point did you decide to channel your talent, your obvious talents in several fields, toward art rather than comedian work? Surely you find expression of your human expression somewhere in your work.
Yeah.
In light, contrast.
Yeah. And the notion of the other things that one does. How did I end up channeling into art? So I said I was a failed magician. I was terrible at the moves. My hands just became like too big to do convincing coin drops and all the other stuff. And my dad was a real lover of stand-up comedy. He used to play Bob Newhart and Albert Brooks and George Carlin, who's a big favorite of mine.
Okay.
So I grew up in a family who really appreciated the quirkiness and the truth that a comic can deliver. And color like Old Holland, which is much more expensive, but much more color fast and richer, and will go a longer way when you dilute it with mediums or you tint it with white. So mostly gambling.
Margaret, do you varnish are these varnished?
Are these varnished? Mostly not. I tend to use a combination of Galkid medium, which is a Gamblin product. It's a liquid alkyd resin, and it's fairly shiny. And I'll add to that a little bit of walnut oil, which slows the drying time and is also a little bit shiny. And I'll often mix that into the paint in the process so that when it's finished, it'll maintain that juicy just freshly painted feeling. And then a lot of other areas I'll buff down to more of a matte finish. So there's a combination of shiny and matte, which is a nice effect, I think.
Ryan's going to be here for a while. All of you take opportunity to speak with him.
Wow, he's a very good speaker, very engaging, and I think I learned a lot. You see how thin the interior, he talked about that he would go from light to dark, from season to season in the painting, and then also the interiors would be much more thinner and be much more subtle, and that each painting had that same kind of story. So yeah, I mean the middle is all scratchy and thin. I don't know if you got the end, but they talked about varnishing, that he would just mix the Galkid and the walnut oil. And for the vibrant colors, he mainly used Old Holland, and the other paints Gamblin for the just regular colors. The specialty colors, like probably the bright, vibrant colors would be Old Holland, because maybe, maybe the actual pigments are a little more expensive, but I love his use of these pastel grays, and I do, it's interesting, I am very attracted to this sort of center approach where he leads you to the center in each painting. So that was fun. Good turnout. Not everybody could see him while he was speaking. So is this one of his, this is a works on paper, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. I like that. So this is what they call a showing room, almost like a private area where people can sit and look at paintings, almost like if you're in a living room.
Pretty impressive. Yeah. Done this for as long as really cool. He's from Minnesota. Ended up somehow in Memphis, South Carolina. Was working there at the museum, the Shelby County Museum,
This is great. I'm so happy to meet this new artist, Christopher, and his fiance. She works at the gallery, and we're going to come back and see his one-man show in April. Thank you so much for watching my YouTube videos. I love it when people write me about them, and I have fun doing them, so I'm so glad that people are enjoying them. Please subscribe and follow me and Scott on our Instagram pages, our website, and also on our patreon.com/Susan Lyon.